Loneliness feels like a modern epidemic. Millions of people report feeling isolated, disconnected, and alone. But for most of human history, loneliness was almost impossible. Not because ancient humans were happier. Not because life was easier. In fact, their lives were far harder than ours. Yet they rarely experienced the kind of loneliness that has become normal today. And the reason why reveals something surprising about what humans were actually built for. To understand this, you have to forget almost everything about modern life. Think about your average day. You wake up in a room by yourself. You travel alone. You work with screens. You eat while scrolling. You return home. You close the door. And nobody enters unless you invite them. To us, this feels normal. To an ancient human, it would have felt bizarre. For nearly all of human existence, being alone was not freedom. It was danger. Anthropologists estimate that anatomically modern humans have existed for roughly 300,000 years. Agriculture is only about 12,000 years old. Cities are even younger. For more than 95% of our history, humans lived in small hunter-gatherer bands, typically between 20 and 50 people. These weren't people you saw occasionally. These were people you spent almost every moment with. You woke up together. You gathered food together. You traveled together. You slept near one another. Children were raised collectively. Food was shared collectively. Life itself was collective. The modern idea of spending hours completely alone would have been extremely unusual. And here's what's fascinating. Many ancient languages didn't even have a direct equivalent to the modern concept of loneliness. They understood grief. They understood exile. They understood loss. But chronic social isolation was much rarer because the conditions that create it barely existed. Think about this. If you were living 30,000 years ago and wandered away from your group, you weren't just risking loneliness. You were risking death. A single person had almost no chance of surviving for long. One individual couldn't watch for predators while sleeping. One individual couldn't hunt large game effectively. One individual couldn't defend territory. Human survival depended on cooperation so completely that our brains evolved around it. And evidence of that evolution is still inside you. Right now, neuroscientists have discovered that social rejection activates many of the same brain regions involved in physical pain. In other words, your brain treats social disconnection as a threat. Because for most of human history, it was. Feeling excluded wasn't merely unpleasant. It was potentially fatal. Loneliness evolved as an alarm system. Much like hunger tells you to eat. Much like thirst tells you to drink. Loneliness tells you to reconnect. The feeling itself was never the problem. The problem is that the environment around it changed. But that's only part of the story. Because ancient humans weren't simply surrounded by more people. They were surrounded by more meaningful relationships. Imagine living in a group of 30 people. You know everyone's face. Everyone knows your history. Everyone knows your strengths. Everyone knows your weaknesses. Your role in the group is clear. Maybe you're a skill tracker. Maybe you're good at making tools. Maybe you're an exceptional storyteller. Maybe you're the person who remembers where water can be found during droughts. Whatever your role was, it mattered. And everyone around you knew it mattered. This is something psychologists call social embeddedness. The feeling that you are woven into a larger structure. That your existence affects other people. That you belong somewhere. Ancient humans experience this every day. Not because they practiced gratitude. Not because they followed self-help advice. But because their environment naturally created it. Modern environments often do the opposite. Today, you can live in a city surrounded by millions of people and still feel invisible. You can order food without speaking. Work without meeting coworkers. Watch entertainment alone. Exercise alone. Shop alone. Even loneliness itself can be experienced alone. Which raises an uncomfortable question. If humans evolve in groups, what happens when those groups disappear? Researchers have spent decades trying to answer that question, and the results are startling. Studies consistently show that chronic loneliness is associated with increased stress hormones, poorer sleep quality, higher rates of depression, cardiovascular problems, and even shorter lifespans. Some researchers have argued that severe loneliness can be as damaging to health as major physical risk factors. Not because loneliness directly harms the body, but because the body interprets prolonged social isolation as a signal that something is wrong. From an evolutionary perspective, it is. Your nervous system still expects the world your ancestors lived in. A world filled with constant social contact. A world where isolation was temporary. A world where belonging was the default. But the modern world introduced something entirely new. Persistent solitude. And honestly, that's a strange concept when viewed through the lens of history. Consider how recently many modern living arrangements appeared. For most of history, multiple generations often shared the same space. Grandparents, parents, children, extended family. Sometimes entire communities living within walking distance of one another. Privacy existed, but prolonged isolation did not. The average human simply spent far less time alone. Then came urbanization, industrialization, modern transportation, digital communication. Each innovation solved certain problems, but each one also quietly changed how humans interacted. The paradox is that we are more connected than ever before, and yet many people feel less connected. You can communicate with someone on the other side of the planet instantly, but still go an entire day without meaningful conversation. You can have thousands of followers, and no one to call during crisis. You can receive constant notifications, and still feel alone. The human brain struggles with this distinction, because connection and contact are not the same thing. Your ancestors didn't merely exchange information. They shared experiences. They hunted together, worked together, cooked together, faced danger together. Their relationships were reinforced by necessity. Modern relationships often require deliberate effort, and when that effort disappears, so can the connection. But here's the strange part. Ancient humans weren't always happy. They experienced grief, conflict, fear, loss, violence, hardship on a scale most of us will never encounter. Yet many anthropologists studying traditional hunter-gatherer societies have noticed something remarkable. People often report strong feelings of belonging, even in extremely difficult conditions, because belonging isn't created by comfort. It's created by participation, being needed, being known, being part of something larger than yourself. This brings us back to a pattern that appears again and again throughout human history. People can endure extraordinary hardship when they feel connected, but even comfortable lives can feel empty when connection disappears. Perhaps this is why loneliness feels so confusing. Objectively, many people have more security than their ancestors ever did. More food, more shelter, more medicine, more convenience. And yet something still feels missing. Not because modern life is bad, not because the past was better, but because the human brain was shaped in a world fundamentally different from the one we now inhabit. A world where social connection wasn't something you scheduled. It was simply life itself. And maybe that's the deeper lesson hidden inside loneliness. The feeling isn't proof that something is wrong with you. It may be evidence that an ancient system inside your brain is working exactly as it was designed to work. For hundreds of thousands of years, your ancestors lived in small groups where isolation was rare and belonging was unavoidable. Their world built connection automatically. Ours often requires us to build it ourselves. And that may be one of the greatest challenges of modern life. Because despite all our technology, despite our cities, despite our networks and screens, the human mind still carries the expectations of a hunter-gatherer sitting beside a fire, surrounded by people who know their name. For most of history, loneliness wasn't a condition humans had to escape. It was a warning they rarely needed. Today, that warning echoes through a world that looks nothing like the one it was designed for. And perhaps that's why loneliness feels so powerful. It's not just the absence of people. It's the presence of an ancient need that has followed us through 300,000 years of history. A need that helped our ancestors survive, and one that modern humans are still trying to understand.